Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Monday, March 27th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Indiana game is in 159 days. The game against Michigan in 243 days. We are talking defensive line today for the Buckeyes. Did a bunch of offensive line for you on Saturday's show. Today, we're going to the other side of the ball, still staying in the trenches, still staying with a position where the Buckeyes are definitely looking to fill a few holes this spring. They're feeling pretty good, I think, about the top three or so on the interior, the top three or so at the defensive end positions. But as you'll hear Larry Johnson talk about a little bit later on, he needs more than that. He needs to find a few more guys to feel comfortable with his rotations for this fall. So let's start with Jack Sawyer. He has been one of the big topics of the spring so far. Switching, kind of doing away with his role at the jack, and now really focusing solely on defensive end. Is that something that Larry Johnson pushed for?
Yeah, I thought just evaluating it, just conversation with coach and say, hey, I think it's best for Jack, go back to the line of scrimmage, and I think we got another guy can probably play to Jack and let him put his hand in the ground, let him go rush, and that's why we brought him here to do that. And I thought that it was a good experiment, but now let's go play football, and I think that's the best position for him. He feel happy where he's at, and that's important too. Yeah.
Now you heard him say there that Jack Sawyer was happy to be able to just put his hand down in the dirt and go. So. Is that also, in addition to making Jack Sawyer happy, is that also where Larry feels Jack Sawyer might be best?
I think so. I think his best trade is put his hand on the ground and go rush as a defensive end. He's 6'5", 265-pound guy coming off the edge. So we just got to go back and refine his technique, continue to make him better. You can drop, but I think at the end of the day, you want him on the line of scrimmage rushing and playing.
Being at that jack position last year, yeah, he led the Buckeyes in sacks with 4.5, but did the time he spent working on that jack position, standing up, moving around that defense, did that maybe put him a little bit behind in his development?
You don't get the same work. I wouldn't say put him behind. The jack is standing up a line, so he's coming off the edge or he's on the other side. Defensive line guy, you're down on the ground, you're fitting every single time. So it's kind of different things that we're doing, right? You love to see he can do both, but that's tough to do that, unless you got one guy who can do it all the time. So I don't think he set it behind. It's just it's different than the first time going into a new defense, playing that position. So I think we're evolved from that point on.
We mentioned off the top of the show, probably feeling pretty good about the starters kind of all over the defensive line. You've got three pretty good solid guys at defensive end. You get three pretty good solid guys on the interior. But now, do you still need to build some depth to really feel good about where you're standing before you enter the season?
That's what we have to build. I think we have to build some depth. I think that's the key right going into spring. Build some depth in the inside. I feel pretty good about the inside guys. I think we got some strong depth there. Now we got to build an end position. We've had that in the past, and then the first time we got to go build that again. So I'm looking forward to see what happens in the next 14 days. Where we finish.
There are kind of three guys that you figure are going to be among the rotation on the interior, and it doesn't sound like they're totally locked in on who's going to play exactly where just yet. But are Tyleik Williams and Mike Hall sort of the front runners to start inside? Where does Ty Hamilton fit into that whole mix? Here's what Larry Johnson had to say about that.
It's hard to say right now because you got three guys. You got Tyleik, you got Ty, and you got Mike Hall. There's three guys inside. You got to find a place for them. And that's my job. Where can they play? Where can they be? So it's great competition. And I think that's the key. But it's just too early to figure out what's going to happen. We'll let it play itself out. But I like where we're at right now on the inside.
One of the other guys that could end up providing depth, much needed depth, and some crucial plays this fall is Jerron Cage. Now, Jerron is a Germany native. He just started playing football a few years ago, came over to California, came over and camped at Ohio State a little bit, really liked his time at Ohio State, skipped a trip to Michigan to spend a second day at camp at Ohio State. So he is someone who is, sort of still learning the game, learning the positioning, all that kind of stuff. Now, Larry Johnson was asked about him, and you're going to hear at the start of the answer, Larry kind of has a little bit of fun. Jerron was sitting there listening to Larry Johnson talk. So Jerron's sitting there 5 feet away as the reporter asks about Jerron Cage. So Larry will have a little bit of fun with this question at the start.
You say Jerron? Who's that?
Jerron Cage.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I didn't even know he was standing right next to me.
Yeah, he's coming. He's had it the first 4 days. I've been really pleased. He's starting to come along. I think he's starting to figure out this football thing, and his future's ahead of him. So I'm looking forward for the next few days to see how he does. But he's doing well right now.
Ohio State's Pro Day was last Wednesday, and one of the nice things about Pro Day is you can ask the players about some of their younger teammates. In addition to talking about them and their NFL futures, you can also ask about some of the younger guys who, maybe in the past they weren't totally able to talk about super openly. Once you're sort of in the former Buckeye end of eligibility, maybe get a little more open, a little more effusive with your comments. And one of the things that Zach Harrison said was that Kenyatta Jackson really flashed last fall. So he's someone who might be one of the guys in position to provide that fourth, fifth defensive end spot this fall. So here was Larry Johnson's answer on how Kenyatta Jackson has sort of progressed from last season now into the spring. You're also going to hear him talk a little bit about Amari Abor in this answer as well.
He's got a lot of potential. He's got a lot of potential. So now it's just learn how to play the game at maximum speed, if that makes sense. So that's the part. When you're on the scout team, you can play at a slower pace. Now you're with the big boys now for the first time going against the ones and twos. Now that speed's got to pick up. So it's a learning process. Everything's a process. And hopefully the spring ball will get that out of him, give a chance to really show himself. But he's got talent. Amari does too. I like Amari. I think Amari's really starting to move forward. He's 265 now, and so I like where those two guys are starting to grow.
I think I've talked about the three guys that they're feeling pretty good about on the defensive end spots a couple times in this show. JT Tuimoloau, Jack Sawyer, those are kind of the two free spaces on the bingo card. But the third guy that seems like he's pretty much in a position to be in the circle of trust right now is Kaden Curry. Now, he's someone who was a true freshman last fall, mostly played on special teams, but was also someone who, anytime you heard people talk about a true freshman who was standing out, his name was usually very close to the top of that list. So now entering his second year, what has Larry Johnson seen out of Kaden Curry, and what is he still working on?
Caden's he's got to come on the field and play for us. He's got to play. He knows that. It's that time, right? And when you get to this point of the game, you got to play. It's all there. So now he's just got to play more football. And he's doing a good job right now for us, and looking forward to see how it goes. Let's go forward. Yeah, I thought every time he went in a game, he made a play. And I always said about Kaden, you watch him play in high school, he just made plays, man. Somehow he found the football. And when we put him in a game, in the last half of the game, Kaden Curry, that's what he is. And that's what we're looking for. He plays hard, and that's what I love about him. Yeah.
One of the more jarring realizations of this spring is the fact that Ohio State's 2021 defensive line class, Jack Sawyer, JT Tuimoloau, Tyleik Williams, Mike Hall, those guys are all NFL draft eligible after this season. As crazy as that sounds, it feels like they just got here and they're already entering what could theoretically be their final season and is definitely their third season. So when you look at a guy like JT Tuimoloau, who came in with all the hype in the world and who has had really, really impressive moments and impressive games. Yes, we're all thinking about the Penn State game last year when I say that. So where can he continue to grow entering his third year?
Like I always say, first block the noise and just concentrate on who you are. Don't worry about all the other things outside. Just concentrate on your technique and just keep getting better. And again, I say this all the time. It's not the big things, the little things, and you get better as a player. And that's what we work in. It's all the little things, where your step, his hand place, eye discipline, all those things are important to become an elite player. He has a talent and skill set, so how can we make him better? Well, that's my job. I got to find those little things to make him better.
Thought this was a really interesting question. Larry Johnson was asked about his philosophy in teaching tackling and how things maybe are a little bit different teaching it for the guys who are on the interior versus the guys who are defensive ends.
Tackling for the inside guys is totally different from the guy open space, right? So we have more wrap row tackles than anything else, and then we have face-on tackles. And so we're more face-on wrap row tackle because the ball is running away from us. And so you saw it today, we work a lot on that because those are the tackles those guys get. And that open space guys come from a linebacker. Then we might get an open space in a quarterback, and that's about leverage, getting to the top shoulder, make sure we contain the quarterback and fit him. So those things all play in our tackling ability. And we tackle every Tuesday. Every Tuesday of the season we're tackling and working on those basic techniques.
When we've talked about the fact that Ohio State needs to build some depth at both the end and tackle positions this year, how much depth do they really need to build? If they have 6 guys they're feeling pretty good about right now, how many more do they really have to feel comfortable with their rotation and their depth entering the season?
You like to have 8. You like to have 8 to play. That's what you really like to have is 2 deep. And then you need a 5th guy who can play either nose or 3 technique, and the end and go right and left. So put you around 10. And then I think that's a good number to go into a game with, you know what I mean? And the last year we had a lot of depth. This year we may only 10 or 8, 10 guys can play. We just got to wait and see. But that's what I like to do. You want to have 2 deep, and you want to have a guy who's a bonus player who can play inside and a guy who can play right or left end. So it gives you some flexibility.
Mike Hall had a very impressive season last year in the limited amount of time he actually got to play. He, of course, injured his shoulder against Toledo and was just kind of never healthy after that. He is back and much healthier now and feeling pretty good. He talked about the fact that he's really pretty close to 100% right now, feeling very good. So you're to hear from Mike Hall now. What is his goal coming into this year?
I'll just say just to be the best unit, try to become the best defensive line group in the country. I would say we always strive for that, and Coach Jay always preaches that, and just pushing the yardstick every day and just try to be better every day.
Mentioned earlier that this could be JT Tuimoloau's final season in Columbus as a third-year player. He's someone who, even before the Peach Bowl last year, following that loss to Michigan, he sort of stepped up and took on a veteran leadership role on that team. Spoke to the whole team about how the season was still not lost. It was they still had a bunch of goals in front of them that they could achieve, and sort of took on a leadership role as a second-year player, which is pretty much unheard of outside of maybe a quarterback here or there. So now JT Tuimoloau has a chance to take in an even bigger role as a veteran leader. Here's JT talking about some of that.
Yeah, it was obviously crazy that I'm one of the older heads, one of the leaders, and I thank all my older brothers that left, but I still talk to them. They still talk to me on how to lead and what my role is on the leadership aspect. And it's weird knowing that I'm young, but I'm also the older guy in the room. So just got it. That's the role I have to take on, and that's the role I thank my team for trusting me with, and as well as the coaches.
Entering this fall, we are finally going to get a chance to see former five-star recruit JT Tuimoloau and former five-star recruit Jack Sawyer lined up on opposite ends of the defensive line, just lined up at end across from each other. It seems like something that is probably something that a lot of Ohio State fans are excited about. It sure sounds like it's something that Larry Johnson's excited about. And when you listen to JT talk here, it sounds like something that he and Jack are pretty excited about as well.
Oh, Jack, me and Jack are like the same type of people. We're always competitive. No matter, like I said, no matter if it's good or bad, we'll always feel like there's something we could even do better. And that's just the competitive nature in us. Jack is getting better, and we're all getting better. He's pushing me too. So I thank him and then love him for that. But Jack, always love Jack. He always has that go mode.
And finally, one question for Jack Sawyer. He was asked, this is our buddy Tony Gerdeman asking this question. This is something that Larry Johnson has talked about in the past. He wants Jack Sawyer to play a little more recklessly. So that's a really interesting challenge because you can't play too recklessly. You have to sort of play under control and make sure you stay in your rush lanes and all that kind of stuff. So Jack Sawyer, how do you balance wanting to play recklessly, but also needing to play under control?
It's kind of you kind of try to find the median, because obviously you got to play your technique, and I think as a whole in football, you're always supposed to play reckless. That's how I was raised to play football, is reckless and just throw your body around. But you also got to play the fundamentals of technique. So it's a balancing thing you got to figure out. I would just say just kind of try to balance it out.
All right, hope you guys enjoyed that. I always like to let you guys hear a little bit from some of the players. Maybe see some of the players if you're watching on YouTube. There are some interesting characters, interesting stories underneath those helmets and shoulder pads that you don't generally get to see during the game. So always kind of like to let you hear a little bit directly from those guys as well. We'll be doing that a bunch more later on this week. We'll have more interviews, more practices, all that good stuff for spring football 2023. Forgot what year it was, 2023, heading into the spring game on April 15th. We'll have one more scrimmage coming up this weekend with the student appreciation practice. We'll be there for that. And then a bunch of interviews coming up this week. And then sort of the countdown to the spring game. It really kind of takes off for real this week. Just a little over 2.5 weeks or so till that spring game starts. So that will be a fun event as always at Ohio Stadium, April 15th. You can get your tickets right now if you'd like to attend that as well. But if you want to hear a whole bunch about the Buckeyes between now and then, you can do that at BuckeyeHuddle.com. We have our fantastic team of insiders covering the team, covering recruiting, covering scheme and X's and O's, all that good stuff, all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. And of course, all sorts of content as well at YouTube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. Lots of interviews, lots of podcasts, lots of analysis, lots of recruiting news, all sorts of great stuff, all there in one spot. YouTube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. That will do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.